Grand Theft Auto is known for a lot of things. Its sprawling open worlds, chaotic gameplay, and of course, its unforgettable characters. But no story is complete without a good villain, and thankfully, Rockstar Games knows how to give us some of the most iconic, compelling, and downright twisted villains in gaming history. But out of all the bad guys across the series, which one truly stands out as the greatest GTA villain of all time? Today we'll answer that question by ranking the best of the best, 15 villains who made their mark on the Grand Theft Auto franchise. So join me as we break down their stories, uncover their sinister plans, and figure out why they've earned their place as unforgettable GTA villains. Now, real quick before we jump into this, I did end up skipping the villains from GTA 1 and 2. Though there were some fairly memorable villains like Sunbeam, for example, the amount of backstory, details, and overall story doesn't compare to the 3D and HD games from the franchise, so I felt it was best to skip these games entirely and jump right into the good stuff. So with that being said, let's start with the one and only Catalina, who we are first introduced to in GTA 3 as the primary villain of the story. She begins as a partner in crime and love interest of your character, Claude. At the beginning of the game, Catalina betrays Claude during a bank heist, shooting him and leaving him for dead to take the money herself.
Sorry, babe. I'm an ambitious girl. You're just small time.
This betrayal sets the entire game's story in motion, as Claude seeks revenge while navigating the criminal underworld of Liberty City. Throughout the game, Catalina consistently thwarts Claude's efforts, aligning herself with powerful crime syndicates to maintain her grip on the city. Catalina is the embodiment of chaos, ambition, and ruthlessness. Rockstar portrays her as a volatile and unpredictable character who will stop at nothing to achieve her goals, as we often see her shooting at pedestrians, police, and anyone in her way. She's both manipulative and cunning, using her charm and intelligence to outmaneuver her enemies and her allies. Her brash personality is balanced by her ability to command respect and fear, even among Liberty City's hardened criminals. What's particularly interesting is her connection to GTA San Andreas. Players learn in that game that Catalina has a history of betrayal and violent ambition, as seen in her toxic relationship with CJ.
I will kill you if you ever mess around. I will castrate you first, then I will make you eat them.
Constantly insulting him and caring for no one outside of herself. Her fiery temperament and hunger for power are consistent across both games, making her one of Rockstar's most fleshed out villains across multiple games.
Today, I kill everybody who f***s with me. Especially you!
But what truly cements her as a great villain is her dynamic with Claude. While Claude's a silent protagonist, her relentless taunts, one-liners, and manipulative actions keep their relationship compelling throughout the game. She's not just a typical antagonist, she's a personal enemy, making the stakes feel higher and more emotionally charged. But while Catalina is a great villain in GTA 3 and fairly unique compared to the rest of the villains on this list, her role in GTA San Andreas can come across as kind of annoying at times. I dock some points for that and for putting my guy CJ through hell, and she gets a B on this tier list. Let's look at the next villain on our list, Donald Love. When we're introduced to Donald Love in GTA 3, he's one of the most powerful and enigmatic figures in Liberty City. As a wealthy real estate tycoon and media mogul, he operates in the shadows, pulling strings to manipulate the city's political and criminal landscape. He hires Claude for a variety of morally questionable jobs, ranging from corporate espionage to outright murder, all to advance his business empire. Though Donald is not a traditional antagonist in the sense of directly opposing Claude, his Machiavellian schemes and sinister motives make him a villain in the grander sense of the GTA 3 story. Donald Love is the epitome of corporate greed and corruption, a perfect embodiment of the satirical themes Rockstar loves to explore. He's suave, charismatic, and completely unbothered by morality.
Nothing drives down real estate prices like a good old-fashioned gang war, apart from an outbreak of plague. But that might be going too far in this case.
Treating crime and death as mere tools to expand his empire. One of the most interesting aspects of Donald Love is his character development we see throughout the events of GTA Vice City, Liberty City Stories, and into GTA 3. It's one of the few times we see the same villain throughout different GTA games. See, in GTA Vice City, we see Donald in 1986 as the right-hand man of real estate expert Avery Carrington, where he learns how to manipulate Vice City's real estate market via any means necessary. By Liberty City Stories, we see Donald as more established, having entered the race to become the mayor of Liberty City. We, the player, become a fixer for him, blowing up factories, having the player kill his former mentor, Avery Carrington, and even stealing dead bodies for Donald to eat. Yeah, he's also a cannibal. He eats human flesh and describes it as being like chicken. It's a dark and bizarre character trait that makes him one of the most unsettling figures in the GTA universe. So now that you understand how Donald Love became a seasoned business tycoon and manipulative villain, what makes him so great? Well, it's his subtlety. Unlike many of GTA 3's antagonists who rely on brute force or overt betrayal, Donald operates behind the scenes, pulling strings and manipulating events to his advantage. His polished demeanor contrasts sharply with the ruthlessness of his actions, creating a chilling duality that keeps players guessing about his true nature. He's also a satirical commentary on the unchecked power of the ultra-rich. Through Donald Love, Rockstar critiques how money can corrupt and control society, often at the expense of everyone else. His disappearance towards the end of GTA 3 only adds to his allure. Donald Love's fate was such a big deal that Rockstar Games put out an official response, essentially saying no one knows what happened to Donald. Donald Love is a masterclass in how to craft a villain who doesn't need to wield a gun or shout threats to be terrifying. His quiet manipulation, ambiguous morality, and larger-than-life persona make him one of the most fascinating characters in the GTA series. While his storyline leaves many questions unanswered, that only solidifies his legacy as one of the greatest villains, and for that, he gets a place in the A tier. Next up is GTA Vice City's Sonny Forelli, the ruthless head of the Forelli crime family who serves as the big villain of GTA Vice City. At the beginning of the game, Sonny sends Tommy Vercetti, your player's character, to Vice City to oversee a drug deal on behalf of the Forelli family. However, the deal goes disastrously wrong when it's ambushed, leading to the loss of both the money and the drugs. Sonny holds Tommy responsible, putting massive pressure on him to recover the lost assets.
You better not be screwing me, Tommy, because you know I'm not a man to be screwed with!
As Tommy builds his empire in Vice City, Sonny remains a looming threat, demanding repayment and ultimately attempting to assert control over Tommy's empire. Their relationship culminates in a violent showdown when Sonny arrives in Vice City to take what he believes is owed to him. Sonny Forelli is a classic mob boss archetype, embodying the traits of power, greed, and betrayal. He's shrewd and calculating, always seeking ways to expand his influence while eliminating threats. Rockstar paints him as a figure who thrives on intimidation and manipulation, using fear to maintain loyalty within his organization. What's particularly interesting about Sonny is his personal connection to Tommy. Their relationship is fraught with tension and history, as Sonny was both a mentor and a betrayer. He's the one who sent Tommy on the infamous job in Liberty City that resulted in Tommy's 15-year stint in prison. This backstory adds layers to their dynamic, making Sonny's actions feel more personal and vindictive. Sonny's role as a villain makes him a looming figure of power and a deeply personal enemy for Tommy. His constant threats and demands fuel the tension throughout the game, creating a sense of urgency and dread that drives the narrative forward.
Tommy.
Sonny.
Obviously you are suffering from hearing problems, so I'll try again. Where's the goddamn money?
What truly makes Sonny compelling, however, is how he serves as a foil to Tommy. While Tommy builds his empire through cunning and determination, Sonny represents the old guard of organized crime, relying on brute force and intimidation to maintain control. Their eventual clash is not just about money or power, but about Tommy breaking free from Sonny's shadow to establish his own legacy. Sonny's ruthless ambition combined with his personal vendetta against Tommy make him one of the most memorable villains in the GTA series. His ultimate downfall is as much a triumph for Tommy as it is a testament to Rockstar's ability to craft layered, impactful characters, and for that, he gets a solid place in the A tier. As we continue on with GTA Vice City, next on the list is Lance Vance. He begins as an ally to Tommy, working alongside him to seek revenge for the death of his brother, Victor Vance, during the botched drug deal that sets off the game's events. Initially, Lance is portrayed as Tommy's right-hand man, helping him rise to power and establish control over Vice City's criminal underworld. However, as Tommy's empire grows, Lance begins to feel undervalued and overshadowed. His resentment festers until he ultimately betrays Tommy, aligning himself with Sonny Forelli in a bid to take control of the empire they built together. This betrayal leads to the game's climactic showdown where Tommy confronts Lance and Sonny in a final battle for dominance. Lance is one of the most complex characters in Vice City. At first, he's charming, ambitious, and loyal, making him an easy character to root for. However, Rockstar carefully seeds hints of his insecurities and ego throughout the game. He often complains about being sidelined or not receiving enough credit for your success, showing his need for validation and recognition.
Sorry, Tommy, this is Vice City. This is business.
You sold us out.
No, I sold you out, Tommy. I sold you out.
Lance's eventual betrayal is symbolic of his character, a mix of desperation and greed. He craves the power and respect Tommy commands, but lacks the discipline and vision to achieve it on his own. His flaws mirror Tommy's strengths. Tommy is calculated and focused. Lance is reckless and emotional. His downfall is a direct result of that. Lance Vance stands out as one of Rockstar's most memorable villains because of his transformation from ally to villain. His betrayal feels deeply personal, as players spend much of the game working closely with him. Unlike other villains in the series, Lance isn't an obvious enemy from the start either. Instead, his arc builds over time, making his eventual turn all the more hurtful and serving as a pivotal moment in Tommy's journey to becoming the kingpin of Vice City. We see him change in front of us over time, but in Vice City Stories, a game that takes place 2 years before Vice City, we see the worst qualities of Lance Vance right away, constantly putting his brother Victor Vance in the worst situations, with his greed and ego taking center stage. It's super jarring because 2 years later in Vice City, he's all of a sudden a charming, ambitious, and loyal guy. So, while Lance Vance might be a relatable character and a cautionary tale about how ambition without discipline can lead to destruction, maybe a villain deserving of an S tier rating, the Lance Vance in Vice City Stories ruins this. So, as a result, I'd say he gets a solid place in our A tier. Now we move on to one of the most beloved games of all time, GTA San Andreas, with Officer Frank Tenpenny. Tenpenny is the face of corruption in GTA San Andreas. As a high-ranking member of Crash, a specialized anti-gang unit, Tenpenny uses his position of authority to manipulate the criminal underworld to his advantage.
We can shit on you from such a height, you'll think God himself has crapped on you.
From the very beginning, he establishes control over CJ, our main character, by framing him and using him to carry out Tenpenny's dirty work. Throughout the game, Tenpenny is a constant, inescapable presence. He orchestrates conflicts between gangs, eliminates rivals, and consolidates power while maintaining a facade of respectability as a police officer. Many of the game's major events, the gang wars, CJ's exile, and even the eventual unification of Los Santos, are either directly or indirectly caused by Tenpenny's manipulations. Tenpenny is one of Rockstar's most iconic and multi-dimensional villains, voiced brilliantly by Samuel L. Jackson. Tenpenny exudes charm, menace, and unpredictability. He's not a one-dimensional caricature. He's cunning, manipulative, and terrifyingly effective at exploiting his position to dominate others. Tenpenny also sets himself apart from other Rockstar villains in how he views himself. He doesn't see his corruption as a flaw. In his mind, he's just playing the system better than anyone else.
Intimidate those who intimidate others, Carl. It's my job.
He's so smug, it makes him both infuriating and compelling. He knows he's untouchable for most of the game, and he relishes in this power that lets him control CJ. What takes Frank Tenpenny to the next level, though, is how personal his villainy feels. He doesn't operate from a distance, he's in CJ's face. mocking him, threatening him, and pulling the strings that shape CJ's life. By simply showing up on screen, he'll leave you constantly worried with what he'll do next to CJ. Rockstar, of course, loves using GTA and their villains to make statements about society as well, and Tenpenny is the perfect example of this. He's not just a rogue, dirty cop, he's a product of a larger system that enables and even rewards his villainous behavior. His actions highlight the imbalance of power between those enforcing the law and those subjected to it, making his eventual downfall even more satisfying. Officer Frank Tenpenny is a masterclass in villainy. For all this and more, he's one of the most unforgettable villains in gaming history. From the very first traffic stop with CJ to his fiery downfall, Officer Tenpenny's arc is a defining feature of San Andreas and a standout moment in the GTA series. Few of Rockstar's villains can match the impact of Officer Frank Tenpenny, and that's why he sits at the very top of our list in S tier, for now. Continuing on with San Andreas, let's move on to the villain everyone loves to hate, Big Smoke. Now, Big Smoke starts San Andreas as one of CJ's closest allies and a key member of the Grove Street families. He's larger than life, charismatic, loyal, and very memeable.
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7.
Early in the story, Smoke acts as both a friend and motivator for CJ, encouraging him to help rebuild the Grove Street family's reputation and territory. However, as the story unfolds, Big Smoke's true nature is revealed. Behind the scenes, he's betrayed Grove Street, aligning himself with the Ballas and the corrupt Officer Tenpenny in exchange for money and power. Smoke's betrayal hits harder than most because of the trust and friendship he initially shares with CJ. He's pretty much family. Despite being the comic relief early on, Big Smoke is a complex and layered villain. His larger-than-life personality makes him an instant favorite among players, but Rockstar subtly hints at his greed and ambition early on. See, Smoke is a man who wants more than what Grove Street can offer. He dreams of wealth and status, and he's willing to sacrifice his friends and his community to get it. His flashy new house in Balla's territory and his sudden rise in power foreshadow his betrayal. But his charm makes it easy to overlook these red flags until it's too late. What makes Smoke even more tragic is that his motivations aren't entirely villainous. His decisions are as much about escaping the gang lifestyle as they are about greed, making him a villain you can't help but feel a little bit of pity for. Big Smoke's betrayal is one of the most memorable moments in the GTA series because it feels so damn personal. He's not a faceless enemy or an obvious antagonist like Officer Tenpenny. He's CJ's friend, someone you fought alongside and trusted. This makes his actions cut deeper than a typical villain's. Rockstar does a masterful job at developing Big Smoke that, by the time CJ confronts him in his fortified crack den, Smoke has fully embraced the power-hungry monster he's become. His final moments are haunting. As he lays dying, Smoke defends his choices, claiming he had to get paid and blaming the system for forcing his hand. This adds a layer of tragedy to his downfall, as Smoke isn't just a villain. He's a man consumed by ambition in a world stacked against him.
When I'm gone, everyone gonna remember my name. Big Smoke.
All these things make Big Smoke one of the most iconic villains in GTA history, constantly reminding us why San Andreas remains one of Rockstar's most impactful games to this day. And for that, he sits comfortably in the S tier. We now transition into the new HD era for Grand Theft Auto games. Enabled by better technology, they were able to take their storytelling to a whole new level. So let's find out if they gave us better villains then, because it'll take a lot to dethrone Frank Tenpenny and Big Smoke. So let's start with the first HD era game, Grand Theft Auto 4. Dimitri Rascalov is the central villain of GTA 4, although it isn't immediately obvious from the jump. See, at first, Dimitri presents himself as an ally and business partner to Nico through their mutual associate, Mikhail Faustin. Dimitri seems level-headed and pragmatic, acting as the brains of the criminal operation, offering a sharp contrast to Faustin's erratic, reckless behavior. However, Dimitri's true colors begin to emerge when he orchestrates Faustin's death, claiming it's necessary to appease powerful figures like Bulgarin. Once Faustin is eliminated, Dimitri immediately turns on Nico, luring him into an ambush where Bulgarin attempts to kill him. From this point forward, Dimitri becomes a constant thorn in Nico's side, exploiting his connections to rise to power while making Nico's life increasingly difficult. His betrayal of Niko Bellic is one of the game's defining moments, and his role culminates in a series of pivotal choices for Nico that affect the game's ending and Nico's fate. Dimitri is one of Rockstar's most calculating and cold-blooded villains. Unlike the unhinged Faustin or the flashy, Brucey types of GTA 4's world, Dimitri is all business. A snake in the grass, using charm and false promises to gain the trust of others before betraying them for his own gain.
We can pick the game, Niko Bellic, but we cannot change the rules.
What makes Dimitri so unsettling is his lack of remorse. He's not driven by rage or personal vendettas. He's purely opportunistic. No one is safe, no matter whose side they're on. To him, loyalty and morality are just obstacles to be discarded when inconvenient.
I didn't work this hard to share the spoils of a victory. Goodbye.
This makes him the perfect foil to Niko, a very loyal character who is haunted by his past and struggles with his own sense of right and wrong. Dimitri's willingness to sacrifice anyone for power is quite similar to that of Catalina from GTA 3. He just doesn't carry out his own dirty work. To me, that kind of docks his rating. So while Dimitri Rascalov is a masterclass in subtle, calculated villainy, and his betrayal of Niko sets the tone for GTA 4's grim and morally gray themes, I think we'll have to slot Dimitri into the high C tier. Next, let's look at one of GTA 4's other villains who I previously mentioned, Ray Bulgarin. Ray is introduced in GTA 4 as a menacing figure tied to Niko Bellic's troubled past. He's a powerful Russian mobster involved in human trafficking, arms dealing, and other illicit activities across Eastern Europe and now Liberty City. Niko first mentions Bulgarin as the man he worked for back when he worked as a smuggler in Europe. When the ship Niko was using to transport people sank, Bulgarin falsely accused him of stealing money and swore revenge. This sets up a tense dynamic when Bulgarin reappears in Liberty City, especially after Dimitri Rascalov's betrayal. Dimitri and Bulgarin team up, forcing Niko into a difficult position as he tries to navigate the criminal underworld and survive Bulgarin's relentless pursuit for revenge. Bulgarin's role in both the main GTA 4 story and the DLC is that of an overarching threat, appearing sporadically but always casting a long shadow over Niko's journey. He serves as a reminder of Niko's past sins, tying his old life of violence and betrayal to the new life he's trying to rebuild in Liberty City. Ray Bulgarin is the symbol of unhinged power. Unlike the calculating Dimitri Rascalov, Bulgarin is impulsive, erratic, and terrifyingly unpredictable. His violent outbursts and paranoia make him a wild card in the criminal ecosystem of Liberty City. He's the kind of villain who will kill an ally just for a perceived insult, keeping everyone around him walking on eggshells. His short temper and penchant for cruelty make him a force to be reckoned with, but his arrogance, betrayals of Luis Lopez in the Ballad of Gay Tony, and never-ending pursuit of Niko all end up leading to his own demise. But what truly makes Bulgarin memorable is how Rockstar uses him to explore GTA 4's central themes of betrayal and revenge. His pursuit of Niko isn't just about money, it's about power, ego, and control.
I wasn't discussing your career development. I was telling you what to do.
Bulgarin is a character who thrives on dominance, and his obsession with Niko represents his inability to let go of a grudge, no matter how small. This mirrors Niko's own struggle with revenge, making their conflict feel inevitable and tragic. Despite his big impact on the story and being a personal enemy for Niko, Ray Bulgarin doesn't get as much screen time in the story. Much like Dimitri, he pops up at the worst times for Niko, but his role should have been much bigger. I think Rockstar messed up here. I think both Dimitri and Ray should have been the main villains of GTA 4. So, as a result, I have to dock some points and slide Ray Bulgarin into the C tier. Next, let's look at an often overlooked GTA villain, but a villain that may be one of the most disturbing villains in GTA history. Eddie Lowe.
Eddie Lowe, the animal masturbator.
See, Eddie serves as a side villain through his encounters with Niko Bellic. A serial killer who prowls Liberty City, Eddie lures victims with his awkward demeanor and unsettling charm. Niko encounters Eddie during 2 random encounters. At first, Eddie awkwardly asks Niko for help transporting a rather heavy bag while rambling on about some really explicit questions about animals.
Do you ever wonder if animals, they masturbate?
It quickly becomes clear that Eddie's bag is much more sinister than just a bag. In their second encounter, Eddie's true depravity is fully revealed as he rambles about his violent tendencies, animalistic urges, and the sadistic murders he's already committed. Niko quips,
"You should get laid or something."
This culminates in Eddie attacking Niko, forcing the player to kill him in self-defense. Eddie's role may be small, but his presence leaves a chilling mark on the game, helping build out the world of Liberty City. His encounters serve as a reminder of the horrors lurking in the corners of Liberty City, adding a layer of terror and unpredictability to the world, making it feel all the more real. Eddie Lowe is the personification of unchecked madness. Rockstar designed him to be as unsettling as possible. From his erratic speech patterns to his deeply disturbing confessions, he frequently alternates between nervous politeness and sudden bursts of violence, making every interaction with him deeply unsettling. But what makes Eddie such a terrifying character is how plausible he feels. He's not a criminal mastermind or a mob boss. He's an everyday creep hiding in plain sight, lurking among the normal NPCs you accidentally run over while speeding away from cops. I mean, some of the things Eddie says sounds like a conversation you'd find on the worst parts of the internet.
I like boys. I like girls too. Both are fun in different ways. The same ways as well. I can tell what borough people are from just by hearing them scream. Want to hear some nice, rounded, Algonquin voices. Please stop! Please stop it! Do you like to get spanked? Like that? Excuse me?
His awkward attempts to engage Niko in conversation only amplify the unease, as he casually mentions his violent exploits like they're normal topics of discussion. And despite his small role, to the point where most players probably never even ran into him, Eddie Lowe stands out as one of GTA 4's and Rockstar's most memorable characters, with Rockstar giving us a ton of backstory on Eddie's childhood, family ties, and life in Liberty City. A small window into the world of GTA through one really sick individual. Eddie isn't just some random serial killer you defeat. He's a character that leaves his mark on Liberty City and you, long after the credits roll. And that's what makes him truly terrifying. So for that, he gets an A-tier ranking. Next up is one of the most important villains in GTA 4, Darko Brevic. He is one of the most emotionally significant characters in the game, serving as the main reason for Niko Bellic's quest for revenge. Darko is the man who betrayed Niko's military unit during the Yugoslav wars, selling them out for a measly $1,000. This betrayal led to the massacre of most of Niko's comrades, leaving him haunted by survivor's guilt and a burning desire for justice. Throughout the game, Niko expresses his hatred for Darko and his determination to find him. His cousin Roman and friend Little Jacob even help him track Darko down. In one of the game's earliest climactic moments, Niko confronts Darko in a tense and emotional scene at the airport. Darko's role isn't all about power or influence, it's deeply personal. He represents Niko's past, his pain, and the moral questions that haunt him. His appearance forces players to grapple with one of the game's core themes, the consequences of revenge and whether it truly brings closure. See, Darko is a broken man. When Niko finally meets him, he's nothing close to the shadowy figure Niko has built up in his mind. Darko is strung out, weak, and consumed by guilt over what he did.
I'm lost. I'm lost.
His life has been destroyed by his own actions, and he's resigned to his fate, whether that means death at Niko's hands or living with his torment. Rockstar paints Darko as a tragic figure, someone whose greed led to unimaginable consequences, not just for Niko, but for himself as well. His trembling, desperate look in the airport scene contrasts sharply with Niko's cold, determined fury, creating a moment of raw emotional tension. What makes Darko such a different and interesting villain from all the others is how he challenges Nico's idea of what happened all those years ago. He's a man who made a terrible decision out of desperation, wanting his own revenge on Nico's friends and selling out for money to fuel his addiction. As a result, he spent the rest of his life paying for it. Nico built his life around the idea that killing Darko would bring him peace, but Darko's pitiful state forces him to question whether revenge is even worth it. This is where Rockstar excels. Darko isn't just a villain, he's a mirror reflecting Nico's own choices and the pointlessness of vengeance.
You say I ruined you? You were always a killer. I just have to see that.
After hours and hours of buildup expecting a standard climactic showdown, Rockstar subverts expectations and makes him one of the most human and relatable villains in the series, even if his actions were reprehensible. Whether players choose to kill him or let him live, the decision carries weight. Letting him live forces Nico to confront the possibility that vengeance isn't the answer, while killing him raises questions about whether Nico is any better than the man he despises. Either way, Darko's role leaves a lasting impact on Nico's journey and the player's perception of him, and for that, I give Darko an S-tier rating. Next up is Jimmy Pegorino.
Welcome to the War Council, my boy.
One of the major players in GTA 4's gritty underworld. A mob boss from Alderney, Pegorino is obsessed with elevating his small-time crime family into the ranks of Liberty City's most powerful criminal organizations. Despite his ambition, Jimmy is constantly overlooked and dismissed by the more established mafia families, a fact that drives much of his reckless behavior. Pegorino serves as both an employer and, ultimately, an antagonist to Niko Bellic. Initially, Nico works for Pegorino to gain access to Liberty City's criminal elite. However, Jimmy's paranoia, desperation, and betrayal lead to a deadly confrontation in the game's climax. Depending on the player's choices, Pegorino either kills Roman Bellic or Nico's love interest, Kate McReary, triggering a final mission where Nico hunts him down and kills him. Jimmy Pegorino is characterized by his relentless ambition and deep-seated insecurity. He sees himself as a big fish in a small pond and desperately wants to break free of his limitations. However, his desperation often backfires on his goals. Pegorino lacks the cunning, charisma, and overall juice of Liberty City's top crime bosses, which leaves him stuck on the outside looking in on the mafia world. But what makes Pegorino unique is his willingness to do anything to gain respect and power, yet his insecurities and erratic decisions make him a liability. This duality is best exemplified in his decision to broker a deal with Dimitri Rascalov, a move that ultimately leads to not only his own downfall, but the downfall of his family as well. Pegorino's betrayal of Nico in the game's final act showcases his true nature, a man who values his own ambition over loyalty or even common sense. Despite being Nico's final antagonist and embodying the chaos and betrayals that define Nico's journey through Liberty City, he's just not the most cunning or bright villain when compared to others in GTA 4. So, as a result, my opinion of Jimmy is similar to the way the other Mafia families see him. I think he's a joke, and as a result, Jimmy, you get the F tier. Now let's take a look at the main villain of a little GTA 4 DLC called The Lost and Damned, Billy Gray. As the president of the motorcycle gang, the Lost MC, Billy represents the destructive consequences of absolutely unchecked ego and power. He starts as a brother-in-arms to Johnny Klebitz, the main character you play as. Together, they share a deep history in the Lost MC. However, their ideological differences quickly surface. While Johnny prefers a more balanced approach to running the gang, Billy is impulsive, violent, and obsessed with the old-school outlaw lifestyle.
Screw you, you deadbeat prick!
Yeah,
you can come to my party and get crushed! Come on!
Yeah, come on!
This creates tension, and as Billy's reckless actions continue to worsen, their conflict eventually reaches a boiling point. Billy ends up betraying Johnny, framing Johnny for his own crimes while trying to ally the Lost MC with rivals and creating chaos across Liberty City. Billy eventually ends up in prison, and their conflict results in a climactic showdown at the Alderney State Correctional Facility. Unlike many of the villains across GTA's history, Billy doesn't run or really fight back when confronted by Johnny. Surrounded by prison walls and the man he once called a brother, Billy simply opens his arms and taunts Johnny about being hesitant to pull the trigger, all before Johnny finally shoots Billy directly in the face. What makes Billy compelling is how Rockstar uses him to highlight themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the cost of leadership. Billy thrives on chaos, and his addiction to drugs and violence undermines his ability to see situations for what they really are. He's a man trapped in the past, clinging to the faded ideal of what the Lost MC once was, even if it means destroying the gang's future. Billy's personality is also in direct contrast to Johnny Klebitz's. Where Johnny is introspective and focused on the gang's survival, Billy is impulsive, brash, and self-destructive. He's a reflection of Johnny's internal conflict. Their differing approaches to leadership and loyalty form the backbone of the Lost and Damned story. And Billy's actions are felt far beyond GTA 4, even into GTA 5. By framing Johnny for his crimes, he not only jeopardizes the Lost MC, but also breaks the code of brotherhood that the gang is built on. That betrayal cuts deep, as it forces Johnny to dismantle the very organization he spent his life protecting. Billy's actions put Johnny on a new path in life, post-GTA 4. Now, without the organization he called family, we see the fallout for Johnny in GTA 5. Hopped up on meth and strung out, he dies at the hands of Trevor Phillips, a sad end for a GTA character everyone was rooting for. Billy Gray might be one of the most underrated villains in GTA history, and somewhat similar to Dutch van der Linde from Red Dead Redemption 2, a cautionary tale about the dangers of ego and the fragility of brotherhood. That's why Billy Gray gets a solid low A on our tier list. Let's move on to the game that most of you have probably been waiting for, GTA 5. First up is Steve Haines.
Hey guys, stay out of trouble now.
Suck my Steve Haines.
He's one of GTA 5's main antagonists and a high-ranking agent of the Federal Investigation Bureau, or the FIB. As a corrupt government official, Steve embodies the hypocrisy and greed that runs rampant in Los Santos. He uses his position to manipulate others into doing his dirty work while maintaining the illusion of legitimacy. Sounds kind of similar to Officer Tenpenny from San Andreas, right? So let's find out if he's as great of a villain. Steve is the one who ropes Michael DeSanta, Trevor Phillips, and Franklin Clinton into carrying out dangerous and morally questionable missions under the guise of serving the greater good. Whether it's infiltrating a private security company or pulling off elaborate heists to fund FIB operations, Haines treats the trio like disposable pawns. As the story progresses, Steve's arrogance and underhanded dealings put him at odds with other powerful factions, including his rival at the International Affairs Agency, Devin Weston, and even his own FIB allies. By the end, his web of corruption unravels, leading to one of GTA 5's most satisfying moments, the option to eliminate him once and for all. Steve Haines is a textbook example of a villain you love to hate. He's condescending and an overall a-hole. Rockstar masterfully portrays him as the embodiment of unchecked power, someone who abuses his government authority for personal gain and doesn't have a shred of guilt about it. Rockstar uses Steve Haines to represent a satirical take on modern media culture. His secondary role as the host of the Underbelly of Paradise, a sensationalized reality TV show, highlights his obsession with fame and public perception. This duality, government agent by day, media personality by night, adds an extra layer to his character by highlighting his vanity and need for control.
Sometimes you need to become the bad guys to bust the bad guys.
Unlike some of the more traditional gangsters and criminals on this list, Haines wields the power of the federal government, making him feel almost untouchable. His characterization also works as a critique of government corruption and media sensationalism. Rockstar uses Haines to hold up a mirror to society, showing how those in power often abuse their positions for selfish reasons. His hypocritical blend of moral superiority and outright criminal behavior is both infuriating and darkly humorous. Steve isn't just an enemy to Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. He's a symbol of the broken systems they're fighting against, which makes his downfall very satisfying. But there's just one problem here with Steve Haines. Compared to a villain like Officer Tenpenny, Steve is just not very memorable. Almost as if Steve the villain took a backseat to the real villain of the story, the conflict between Michael and Trevor. For that, I'm gonna have to give Steve Haines a C rating on our tier list. Finally, we move on to our final villain on this list, Devin Weston.
Hey, Slick, it's me!
As one of the two main antagonists in GTA 5, he's a billionaire venture capitalist and ruthless businessman that represents the unchecked greed and moral decay of the ultra-wealthy. He sees people as tools, using his vast resources to manipulate others for his own benefit without regard for the consequences. Devin hires Michael, Franklin, and Trevor for a series of heists under the guise of lucrative business deals, including stealing cars for his private collection. However, he consistently undercuts and betrays them, refusing to pay what they're owed and treating them with open disdain.
Just give me the f***ing money now! Oh, I'm so scared, I really am. But you know what? I'm a payment on completion of work type of guy. You don't like the job? Take the f***ing walk! As
the story unfolds, Devin's actions escalate. He orders Merryweather soldiers to go after Michael and Franklin, and even threatens Michael's family. His arrogance and sense of invincibility ultimately make him a dangerous enemy, setting the stage for a climactic showdown. By the game's conclusion, Devin's greed catches up with him, as the player is given the chance to exact revenge in spectacular fashion. What makes Devin particularly compelling, though, is how Rockstar uses him to satirize the 1%. His character is biting commentary on the exploitative practices of the ultra-wealthy, portraying him as someone who sees human lives as mere inconveniences in the pursuit of profit. Devin doesn't even attempt to hide his disdain for others. He openly mocks Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, and even his allies that work for him. He constantly dismisses their value beyond what they can do for him. He thinks he can simply buy power, influence, and protection, which thankfully does end up backfiring on him in the end. While GTA 5 overall feels the most zany out of all the games in the franchise, at times feeling like an old Saints Row game, Devin Weston still feels real, even if he's a highly exaggerated idea of an evil businessman. The kind of villain you might see on the front page of Forbes. The problem is that you can't help but feel like Rockstar has done better versions of the same character in the past, like Donald Love, for example. Maybe in the attempt to update the evil businessman trope for the 2010 era, Rockstar went a little overboard on the outlandishness. Sorta like Steve Haines, Devin Weston doesn't really stand out or have any memorable moments. His end in the story is an afterthought in the main conflict between Trevor and Michael, so for that reason, Devin Weston falls into a C rating on this list. So there you have it, the ultimate Grand Theft Auto villains tier list. Let me know who's your favorite. Did they make the cut? Thanks for watching, and if you made it to the end, comment "Trust No One" down below. Share this with the homies and do the usual YouTube things. Making these videos takes a bunch of time, but your support makes it all worth it.